everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. As you can see, the crew is a little light again. It's just myself, Cory, and John going over this game over here. This game is best played at 2 players, so that is the reason why it's just John and I talking about it today. We will be reviewing Star Wars Rebellion. But basically, you've got one player playing out the Rebellion, one player playing the Empire. The Rebellion, in the start of the game, chooses one of the many planets on the board to choose where their Rebel base begins, completely hidden, secret from the Empire player. And the Empire is basically trying to stomp their way around to different planets to find the Rebel base. As soon as they do, they will go into combat with the Rebellion. If they can beat the Rebellion at their base, then they win the game. The Rebels, in the meanwhile, have these very thematic mission cards where they're trying to do different things to move their token further to the Empire. So the Empire's got one token, the Rebellion has another token, and as the Rebellion completes their missions, that token moves closer to the Empire token, and as soon as those meet, the game is over. So it's almost kind of a race with time for the Rebellion and for the Empire as they're looking for their base.
And surprisingly, it seems like every time I've played this game, it's literally come down to a turn of whether who's going to win or lose. So
yeah, all the times
very
we play.
Balanced. I don't know.
John, take it away with your pros.
I guess first off, I mean, in case you can't tell, pretty big Star Wars fan.
Very big Star Wars fan.
This game has a really good, not only is it Star Wars, but the theme's really awesome. I mean, you're playing as either the Rebels or Empire, and as the Rebels, you're, have the secret base you're trying to keep, hidden from the Empire while they scour the galaxy to find you and destroy your base. And that's basically the whole premise of the game, and just feels really good and makes sense. Good rules.
Very thematic. Very thematic. I think everybody will agree. Everything I've seen online, everybody I talk to, any of the games or any of the game groups that I talk to about this game, they all say the same thing. It feels like Star Wars in a box. Definitely just pours through. It doesn't feel like any one movie specifically. It almost feels like you're playing out
just
your
combination.
Yep.
However, I will say, I mean, depending how your game goes, it can be pretty thematic to the movie. I believe I moved the Death Star, Vader, and Tarkin all the one to Yavin. Except in this version, Yavin got
if you make it a point to follow along with the movies, you can definitely do that.
And it just works out that way with the missions you're doing. I mean, Tarkin just happens to have the symbol that allows you to shoot the super laser, which makes sense. So
definitely.
Pretty cool.
There's constructing the Death Star in this game. Starts off just in the building phase, construction phase of it, and you build it up to make it fully operational. It can take out planets. Very thematic on that front. You've got ground battles and space battles, which is all-encompassing as well.
They actually did a really good job, I thought, on how combat works. I mean, it's fun. You're picking some through this hand of tactic cards to help you get a little bit of an advantage or remove some units early on from a fight. And
well, even more so in the expansion.
Yeah, I guess so. That is expansion.
Yep.
It was a little weaker with the base game where you're just drawing random cards based on what leaders are present. But the expansion really fixed that, I think. Yeah,
definitely. And the base game is a little more dice heavy, a little more random with that, almost more like Risk, where you're rolling out dice and kind of seeing the results. The expansion definitely fixed that, which we'll go over a little bit later in this video. What about replayability?
I think the replayability on this is pretty high. I mean, I've played it 5 or 6 times now, and each game's been pretty different. I mean, the Empire can kind of take several different strategies on how they want to find the Rebel base, either by means of just moving their units across the galaxy or trying to get more intel, thus drawing the probe cards. That any probe card in the deck is a planet the Rebels are not on. So by whittling through those, you're more quickly finding or eliminating the planets that you really have to choose from to get troops to. Yeah,
definitely has a lot of hidden information, kind of a cat and mouse style game, which is reminiscent of the Star Wars franchise itself, and really encompasses all that very well. To go into a little bit, let's say our neutrals or cons with the game. Do you have any cons you can think of with this game? I guess I can think of one off the top of my head, and it's not a con for everybody. Might be the length of the game. If you're not looking, or if you don't have enough time to sit down for 3 hours or 3.5 hours in a night, that could squander it a little bit. It might not get to the table as often for that reason. But if you're used to those longer style games, this one, That's what you'll have to expect out of it.
On the upside, this game seems to go by really fast because you're actually enjoying it and getting into the game.
It does.
But yeah, especially when you don't play it very often or you're trying to remember rules, definitely a more lengthy game.
But like John said too, once you get involved in real into the game, you almost put your head down and you're doing your own thing. And as soon as you turn your head back up, 3 hours has passed. So if you're into Star Wars, this game flies by real fast. So going to teachability, John, I actually learned this game the first time from John. He owns the copy of the game. Teachability, is it easy?
No, it's not too bad. There are definitely some rules that kind of escape players' minds, such as, like, you know, when you put a leader down for a mission, if you put in a system you were thinking about moving out of, you can't do that according to the rules, but it's easy to forget.
Yep.
But for the most part, I mean, everything goes pretty well. There's obviously a skill/learning curve with the missions and what to do when, but overall, I think everything's pretty straightforward.
Yep. And the expansion adds some variability in that too, to the teaching side of it. But once you grasp, I think, the core concept of it, there are a couple FAQs that come up time to time if you haven't played the game in a while. But yeah, I definitely agree. So, and moving on into skill versus luck, John, what do you think on that?
Man, this one's really tough. I mean, really the only luck you have involved in this game is the dice roll during combat. Even that can be slightly mitigated with the tactics cards and what leaders you're bringing for rerolls and such. But even like going through the pro deck, I mean, obviously it's luck which ones you draw through when you're thinking, but I mean, a skilled player will be able to take those cards and be like, okay, they could be, here's the 6 planets that maybe they're on because I have troops here and I have the probe card.
Yep.
And then there's a lot of skill involved with the missions, again, like knowing what missions to use and when to counter opponent. That's like really crucial, and that's all skill based. So
right, I definitely agree. It's a kind of a game of deduction where you're trying to deduce where they might be and when to strategically play the cards. Like John said, there is a lot of strategy and there's some tactical sides to this game too, which is right alongside with the Star Wars theme. You have to respond to what your opponent is doing at different given times on different given planets, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yep.
So
with the expansion, which we got, you know, Rise of the Empire, kind of adds like the Rogue One set of heroes and some new units. You get some new space and ground units that kind of really fill some gaps that weren't really included in the core game. I really do like there's not a ton of different units in this game, but I feel like there's just enough to keep things fresh, but also keeping it like easy to learn, like what each one does, and you have your little cheat sheet that says the health and attack of each unit, so pretty simple.
And I think the expansion really did a good job of adding just enough to the game to where it doesn't feel overwhelming still. Also with the new units come these new green dice, which are real fun to play with too, because of they hit, what do they hit harder but less frequently?
So they can hit either big vehicles or troops, but the odds of getting a hit on those is like less than 50%, but yeah, they're definitely a better die if you can hit those.
Yep. Hits. So kind of a push your luck, risk reward management on that side of it. If you're feeling a little lucky that day, you can go ahead and pull those units out. Another thing it adds, which we touched up on earlier in the video, are those combat cards. So you've got a deck of cards, or what are they, tactical cards for the ground units and for the space
ground
units.
And space, and if you've ever played the Game of Thrones game by FFG also. They probably took it from there, I'm guessing.
Yep.
But you choose one out of this deck of like 9 cards, and after you use it, it goes into your discard pile, and you don't get to reshuffle those in until you've used your whole deck. So you're kind of trying to figure out the best situation to use each card, and some also have like a specific special ability that's added on if you have a unit of the matching type in the battle. So that's pretty unique and kind of cool. Yeah,
almost like a kicker to that unit. So that's just another display of when to use what card at what opportune time to maximize what you're doing, and that's what this game is all about. So yeah, the expansion is definitely, in my opinion, a must-buy.
Yeah, the other thing the expansion adds too, in regards of replayability, is they add another set of mission cards that you actually can interchange with the main core box, so that you're not always playing the same missions over and over again. The starting missions are the same, but your additional missions that you're drawing end up being different.
Definitely adds a lot of variability and some much needed changes in tactics cards for the combat. Overall, like I said, I think it's definitely a much needed expansion. If I were to go out and buy the game, I'd buy the expansion right along with it without even hesitating. Yep, definitely one to keep in mind. And now on to our final ratings, 1 through 10. 10 being the best game of all time, and 1 being throw it off the roof.
Oh man, that's tough. I'm definitely gonna. I think I'm gonna go.
I guess base game first, not with the
base
expansion.
Game.
Yeah, not with the expansion.
Probably give the base game like a 7.5. It's still really fun. I had a lot of fun with it. There were just obviously some holes. I think it was much harder for the Empire to actually do well in the base game, and I think that was kind of a negative. But
yeah, for me, I'm right there with you at about a 7.5. My initial rating was an 8 out of 10 for the base game, set aside from the 3 to 3.5 hour play time. Yeah. If you can put that past you, because I don't sit well through longer games as often as easily, but if that doesn't bother you, 8 out of 10 for me on that. And now with the expansion, has that increased your rating?
Yeah, with the expansion, I'd easily say 9. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the best game ever, but it is definitely up there. It's one I look forward to playing again. And I mean, with all the variability and the increased, like, you're putting more into skill-based gameplay, I think, with the expansion, those tactic cards and the new missions. So,
and you being such a hardcore fan of Star Wars, that's probably where that 9 is coming from a little bit too.
Very easily. That helps.
I'm at an 8.5 out of 10 on that. I love Star Wars. I consider myself a huge fan, not as much in depth as John is, but a solid 8.5 out of 10 for now with that expansion. Definitely increased my rating from an 8 to an 8.5, made it a lot better. And yeah, I don't really have very many negative things to say about this game. No. Definitely a nice complete package. FFG, as always, did a great job on their production value with the miniatures and everything all together. So, until next time, we are talking cardboard, and enjoy your day.